rolling. All right, man. Let's give it a shot. Let's give it a shot. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to WBH Radio. I'm your host, William Holly. It is an honor and privilege to have our next guest. She is getting ready to embark on her 28th season as the head boys varsity coach at Boys and Girls High School. A tenure that includes 3 city championships, 1 state championship. She was the subject of an ESPN documentary called A Woman Amongst Boys. We cannot forget about her own playing career, where she was a standout at Boys and Girls High School, went on to Hilbert College, where she's in the Hall of Fame, finished her college career at Seton Hall. Man, exemplary service to the sport, to the school, and the Bedford-Stuyvesant community. The one and only Miss Ruth Lovelace. Coach!
Hey, well, thanks for having me. I'm just glad and honored to be here.
Oh man, it's a privilege. It's a privilege. I was just telling Coach, like I gotta get my bearings, because if you don't know, I was a student at Boys and Girls from '99 to 2003, and Love was a large figure. You know what I'm saying? Her presence loomed large. If you were a young boy looking to hope to make the team, you hope Love knew your name. So the fact that she's here on my podcast is amazing. Coach, how you feeling?
I'm feeling good. I'm blessed. Like you said, going into my 28th season, 29th teaching. Who could have even, ever imagined? I'm gonna do this as long as I can because I love what I do.
For sure. That resume is unmatched. And preparing for the podcast, I came across some details about your hiring that made me happy, because I feel like it highlights who our principal was at the time, the late, great Dr. Frank Mickens, the revolutionary leader that he was, the maverick. 2 things, Love. 1, you never applied for the position. And 2, you learned that you were going to be the head coach over the loudspeaker the same time as the rest of the school.
You're absolutely correct. Well, me and Mr. Mickens, we used to have conversations about basketball. Of course, like you said, I played there. And my senior year in high school was Mr. Mickens' first year there as principal. So he got a chance to watch me play. And he watched me play a lot my senior year. Like, he came to every home game. And then, I went off to college and came back. And, I started my first year teaching. Right. First year, I'm just kind of, like a fan like everybody else, going to the games. At the end of that season, that season, which was my first year teaching, he decided that he wanted to go in a new direction, and I guess I could use the term fired the coach. Right. So now this is my second year teaching. From time to time he would call me into his office and he asked me basketball questions, and just me being, respectful. Like you said, the legendary person that he is, we talk X and O's, we talk defense, we talk schemes, we talk gimmick defenses, we talk offense. But, just in casual conversation, because most people don't know, but there are a lot that do know that Frank Mickens was a coach himself,
yes.
And won a championship in '79 at, Boys and Girls High School. So, with us having that basketball in common, we always would talk basketball.
For sure.
But not knowing that he was actually interviewing me, and I didn't even really know that he was interviewing me. Yeah. So, as time went on, I would go to his office. He would have like a stack of resumes on his desk. Like, everybody was applying for that job, because it definitely was out that the job was open.
I'm sure. So
he would say to me, he used to call me Kid. He's like, Kid, take 3 or 4 of them resumes and take them home, read them, and, come back and tell me, out of the 4, tell me the 2 that you would hire. Right. So, all right, of course. That's my homework. I go do it, come back. Next 2 days, he's like, take another 3 resumes. So he did that for, a couple of weeks.
Right.
Not ideal. So now it's like, late October, basketball season is about to start.
For sure.
So he comes over to PA system and he says, I went to school to quiet down here, everybody's attention. I mean, I remember being in the gym, teaching class, having a gym, everybody take their knee, quiet. We all looking up at the PA system. Right. He said, I'm about to announce the new basketball coach, boys basketball coach. So he comes over to PA system and he says, the new coach is Ruth Lovelace. So I can remember, everybody in the gym, that's 4,000 kids going to high at that time. It might have been 250 kids in the gym, everybody clapping for me. I'm looking around all right, in the next 5 minutes, he going to come back on the PA and say, I was just playing, and whoever the real coach was. So he never did, So I think I had to teach 2 classes in a row before I got a prep.
And this is on your mind.
This is on my mind. I'm like, when I get my prep period, I'm going straight to him and be like, all right, so when you coming back over to say that you was just playing? Because if you know Mick, he do have some humor in him.
Yes.
So, I marched to his office when I got my break and said, you going to come back over? And he was like, nah, I'm not coming. I said, what you mean? He said, you the new coach. I said, hold up. We call him Mick. I said, Mick, you never once asked me if I wanted to coach, He said, don't worry about that. Yeah. I said, Mick, I don't know if I want to do this. He said, nah, you're going to be all right. He said, I don't care what people think or say. This is not no political stunt. Right. You have my sole respect. You don't have to worry about, I got your back. Right. Don't worry about that. I just need you to work as hard as you can each and every day with these young men.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So when it finally sunk in, this is my task. When you went home that night, what were you thinking?
What stuck in my head out of that whole day was I just want you to work as hard as you can every day for these young men. Mm-hmm. So and that's what I did. Like you said, I was high school all city. I was junior college All American. Mm-hmm. I played at Seton Hall University. So I knew what it took to run a program. And I kind of want to run it just the way I was coached. Right. So I knew about the conditioning, the weight training, and I ran it like a college program. And I think those guys at that time, they respected that. It wasn't like, coaches coming in here winging it. We're just scrimmaging. Right. We're throwing the ball out. No, it was structured. It was timed. It was a practice schedule. And they just, that's what they wanted. And they gravitated to that. And they seen the results.
Mm-hmm. To be a female in that position, in 2021, is a big deal. But you've been doing it for 28 years. Was there some, I guess, backlash or people who didn't believe? What were some of the things you were hearing?
Oh, definitely. The one big thing was she's a female. How can she coach boys and young boys? And then, you got to remember, I was 22, turning 23, so I was maybe 3 years older than a senior. Mm-hmm. I wasn't that much older. So all of that came into play. They just didn't think that, a woman should be in that position, much less, able to be successful at it. They just didn't think that, I could get it done. And that's another thing that stuck in my head. It was don't worry about what nobody say. This is from Mr. Mickens out his mouth. Don't worry about what nobody say. I got your back.
I got your back. I got a quote here from one of the papers from our former principal, Dr. Frank Mickens, rest in peace. He said, when I hired her as the coach, they said, well, Mick, she's a woman. I said, no, she is a part of this school, part of us. She's our blood. And that was the only reason why I chose her. Love, when people ask about Dr. Frank Mickens, what do you tell them?
Man, I you know what? It's so much stuff that you can say about him, but he was beyond his time.
Big time.
He was beyond his time. He was fair, He wanted the best for kids by any means necessary. And if that meant get on your back as an adult you wasn't going to cheat his kids out of education and doing right by them. And he's right. And I think you know, as I look back now, then there's a couple of teachers who now teach at Boys and Girls, but they are former students. And I just think that, you know, they just work a little harder because they bleed that running black, you know.
sure.
And they came through and they, you know, they walked through the door. And, you know, he was the principal that made sure I got everything I needed.
Yeah.
So, you know, that statement, you got that statement, I think that statement is true.
Love, again, I said I attended from 99 to 2003, and I would describe him as like a revolutionary, you know, in the New York City public school system. Couple things. When I first went to the school, the summer before I was to enter the school, I get a letter from Boys and Girls that says I have to attend summer school. I'm like, hold on, what? Like, I ain't never did summer school in my life. It was mandatory at Boys and Girls. But what he was doing was trying to give us a head start. You know, and these are just some of the things. There was no jury. There was no hanging out after school. After school, he dispersed all his staff members. You guys made sure we got on the bus, got home safely. No skirts, no shorts. Like, there was discipline, but he was fair. And he created that environment to give us the best opportunity to succeed. Love, what were some of the tactics that you think helped in that school the most? Because I was reading when he took over the school, they had a 25% graduation rate, and towards the end of his tenure, it was 85%.
And you know, wow, it's funny that you would mention that, Will, because like I said, it came in my senior year in high school, so 3 years prior to that, Boys and Girls probably is one of the worst schools in New York City. And if we look at a period of Boys and Girls High School from, I guess, existence to now, and you had to block off a time period, that time was really, really rough, you know. But when he came in, I think he came in definitely with an education, but he also had a common sense, and he knew the hood, per se, right? He grew up on Lexington between Tompkins and Troop, so he knew Bed-Stuy. He grew up around some of the major projects in that area, which we could say about 7 or 8 of the major projects kind of filtered the kids to the high.
Oh, yeah.
So he knew all of that, and he knew what it took. Some people didn't really like how he went about it, but we know it was best for our kids.
For sure.
Our kids. And I mean, look at you, and there's so many that is very successful and just, you know, bought into his style.
Another thing, when we got out of school, he had 3 city buses waiting for us, love. 3 city buses. So we didn't have to worry about mingling with the riffraff or getting caught up in different things. How do you get away with that autonomy? You know, like, there was the Board of Education in their schools, and then, like, Boys and Girls was his own sovereign state.
I think, you know, sometimes I call it like the Department of Education back then, probably it was like the old boys club, right? And, you know, when somebody is doing something and is effective, you kind of just leave them alone. Like, in your time, not too many people crossed that door unless Mr. Mickens allowed them in there.
For sure.
So you just couldn't come in there. I don't care if you was the chancellor, the mayor. You know, he had total control of his school, his staff, and his students. Like you said, the bus, to have 325 buses, 46 lined up, that Boys and Girls kids should just get on and just leave. He was the first one to have school safety on the perimeter. These are things that people mimicked and copied. And even the Department of Education was like, whoa, we got to introduce this in our security meetings and our staff meetings. And, you know, before you know it, we were in faculty meetings, and he'd be like, well, I'm in Houston today. I'm in Chicago next week. I'm in Detroit. Because everybody wanted to know what he was doing in his school and why it was so successful. You know, he put out books. He did so much. But, like you said, that was just one thing. You know, if you had a fight, you know, he would say, you know, it's a 15-day suspension.
Oh, yeah.
So kids didn't fight. Like, you could see kids arguing. They'd be like, yo, it ain't worth the 25.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or the 15 days, you know, you got it.
Yeah.
And that's the stuff that it's real and it really worked and it changed lives. Coming in, you got kids, like I said, in Bed-Stuy, Crown Heights, some of the major projects. You getting them to put on a shirt and tie.
Shirt and tie, Monday and Tuesday.
And your shirt was tucked in your pants.
Yeah.
That's amazing. It's amazing. You hear kids say, right now I see grown men say, like, Love, you know what? I never even knew how to tie to her. Like, I'm so glad he made me put on a shirt and tie, because it's nothing for me now to, go on an interview, put on a shirt and tie, any dress-up event. Before Mick made us do that, I felt uncomfortable doing it. But once he, made us do it, and he was getting us nice shirts and ties from different companies,
It was phenomenal.
Phenomenal.
I just secured my doctorate in leadership. And one thing they teach us about is it's about service. And it's about setting a culture. And with Mick, he was everywhere in that campus. You might be coming around the hall doing something you're not supposed to, and you were bumping him. Sometimes I walk into these school buildings now, you never see the principal. Like, if you're not working on your people, if you're not understanding what your students are going through, like, what are you doing? In my last piece on Mick, and I tried to figure out what effect did boys and girls have on my life. When I reflect, now that I'm here as an adult, and you mentioned it, Mick understood that we were from impoverished communities. He knew that there was violence, there was gangs. He knew all of that stuff, and he did his best to alleviate some of those burdens, but he never lowered the standard for us. And that had an impact on our lives. Not just Mick, but his staff, you, Coop, Shelton, Mr. Baker, never lowered the standard, and, we were encouraged to push through, and that had a lasting impact on me today. Love, let's get back to this basketball, man. What do you remember about your first game? How bad were you?
It's funny. God bless his dad, Tommy Allen, DJ Tommy Allen. That was the first game we played. We played against Canarsie at Canarsie. And I remember, coming in and, kids getting dressed and, they warming up and I'm sitting on the bench and, Tommy Allen was the first one with the music blasting. I was trying to get my head right. He had the, DJ playing and, he came over to me and he said to me, you know what, pleasure to meet you, Coach Lovelace. I did my homework and, he said, yo, don't beat me too bad. He said, don't beat me too bad. He said, but the one thing I want to tell you is that there's going to be a lot of men that you're going to beat over time, probably this year, and they ain't going to be able to stomach it.
Oh, yeah.
But me, I'm going to be totally different because I believe in work. Yeah. You put in the work, and if your team is the better team, then it's the better team. And it's not about Coach Lovelace, the female, beating me. Right. And we did beat him that night. And, he just shook my hand, and I just respected that because I didn't really think about it like that. Like, I'll be coaching against all these men, and they just really going to hate that I beat them. Yeah. And, that's what I kind of remembered. That's what stood out the most. And then because you start to see it, as the year went on.
A lot of my guys are becoming coaches now, right? And I said, I'm going to have Coach Lovelace on the podcast. Like, what do you guys want to know? Like, they want to know, Love, like, how do you build it? When you have this program, you have this responsibility, like, what's first?
I think you just, what's first is, I just think, like, doing things the right way. Like, okay. So, first it starts with me, right? So, whatever I ask my kids to do, it's going to be modeled by me, right? So I'm going to ask for you to be on time, right? So I'm going to be on time. I'm going to ask you to work hard as you can for me. And you're going to see that I'm going to work as hard as I can for you, right? I'm going to ask you to do well in school academically. But I'm going to give you those resources and those support. So if you're not doing well, we're going to get you the help that you need. So all you really have to do is come to school and play basketball, right? Every other thing is going to be taken care of for you, right? In regards to the resources. So I try to like walk that walk and try to be realistic and tell them stories and let alumni come in and talk to them. And I always tell them that they got to know their history, you know. So yeah, that's what holding kids accountable. Like accountability is everything, and teaching them about accountability, right? Things don't just happen because they just happen. You got to put the work in for it to happen.
You said you were able to win that first game. Were there struggles in the early years, the first season? When do you feel like you were able to put your imprint on the program? Like, this is my program.
I think from year one, year one, we lost to Lincoln in the quarterfinals at Riverbank State Park with Stephon Marbury. Right, so they had Jamel Thomas. So we pushed them to the blink. I mean,
this year one.
I remember Steph has 4 points at halftime. We rolling. We up at halftime. And then he comes out the second half and has 25. But it was a great game. With some great talent. Like I always say to that team, because most of them was seniors, like Bobby Collins and Neil St. John's and Dante Lane. Like I wish I could have coached them 4 years because they had so much talent.
Right.
And it was like you said, inevitable to see what they did the year before. They didn't even make the playoffs the year before.
Wow.
And when he hired me, we go to the Elite Eight.
Right.
And so I want to say, I've been winning 20. This is my 28th year, but 27 straight years of playoff performances. Never, not once missed the playoffs. So I think that's success.
That is success.
In our division, we Brooklyn double A.
Big
It
time.
don't get no easier.
Big time. I saw one of the comments you said that Mick kind of believed in you before you maybe even believed in yourself. Was there a moment where you thought, like, maybe this is too much? You seem to hit the ground running. Did you ever question if you could get it done?
I never even thought about getting it done. Maybe that's what I meant by that. It was just never like a question of this is what I wanted to do or this is what I was going to do. I'm a young, just graduated college. Yeah. I had a teaching job. I'm taking the summers off. You teach for 10 months. So, like I said, I'm 22. I never really thought about coaching, and but he did. He seen something in me. But, it's funny. When I was in high school, like I said, he watched all my home games, but his dad watched every one of my games. His dad was a big fan of mine.
Going on the road.
Going on the road. And so he watched me during my senior year. Then he watched me during my college years. Mm-hmm. Like I would come home, he would have me talk to the kids. Right. He would have me talk, because he coached Empire State games, which was really big back then. He would have me talk to the Empire State teams, the boys teams. So he was pretty, any great, like you said, legendary, beyond his time. Right. He was pretty much getting what he needed to know about me during those times. So that's why I say, like, he had a vision for me that I couldn't even see for myself. He's seen it.
Right. Love, I want to go to, like, my era. There was a stretch when, and you mentioned this, AA Brooklyn basketball, rocking, tough. There was Abraham Lincoln. They had Sebastian Telfair. You had William Grady, Quincy Doobie, Benjamin Banneker had my man Gary Forbes. Like, it was tough, some NBA players. And there was
Roberson was very tough.
Gary Irvin, I forgot. Mm-hmm. And boys and girls was knocking on the door for years trying to get a championship. Like, what can you say about that era before you were able to break through? How challenging was it? Did you ever get discouraged? Like, what was going on?
You know what I think, and I live by this, right? and it's so true. To win a championship, you definitely gotta have talent, right? But you can't have talent alone, right? You gotta have, with that talent, you gotta have chemistry. Like those kids gotta play for each other and play together. And I think you gotta have a little bit of luck, right? So those are my ingredients to winning a championship. And I think during those years, I think maybe something was missing out of those three things. Yes, we was able to like knock on the door and be right there and still make the playoffs and compete with those teams, but we just didn't have all of that lined up at once. I think too, my teams were good, but I never thought my teams was in the best condition, in the best shape. So in my latter years, I started to do more conditioning, like a lot more running. Because I felt like once we got to the playoffs and we go quarters or semis, it just seemed like teams were a little bit more in condition, in shape than us, where we just got tired. So I kind of changed that regimen, and during those championship years, that was the difference. People could not run with us. I mean, we just pressed people, and the way we defend, and we just kept coming at you. Subs, another one coming at you, and I think that was one of the biggest aspects that I changed.
How did you learn that the team you felt was like maybe not as conditioned? Is that in your postseason reflection? And how important is it for a coach to be able to learn lessons even in defeat?
Right. You know what? Well, sometimes you got, you always, not sometimes, you got to look at yourself in the mirror too, and you make mistakes too as a coach. And, you always, all coaches, if it's really in their heart, they look back and say to themselves, what could they have done different, Yeah, you go with your gut sometimes, but sometimes your gut is not always the right call. Sometimes you sub a kid and it might not be the right sub, or maybe you switch the defense when you should have went with something else. Maybe you should have ran. So you do kind of question yourself, but I just feel like in our league, if you're conditioned and you play defense, you give yourself a chance. And I don't care what team has who, big names. If you can do that, you got a chance to win.
Got you. Love, because there was a stretch for a minute. Abraham Lincoln had Telfair, went on to play 10 years in the NBA. And then not too long after that, the phenom Lance Stevenson. This is what you up against. Was there any outside pressures during this period to like, yo, Love, you got to get a championship? Like, did you put more pressure on yourself? Like, how was that stretch?
Of course, it's you tell yourself like that. We right here, like it's like you kick the door, but you can't kick the door open. And I'll never forget when we lost. I think it was 2007, and we lost to Lincoln with Lance. Lance was a whole different player. Like, Lance was definitely a man against boys, but I still went back and I reflected on, I felt that we had the talent. We had Dave Miles, we had, with the Hofstra, I had Patrick Jackson, and with the Rutgers, 6'6". Yeah. So I felt like we had the players that could somewhat match up with him. But, like, again, I just felt we ran out of gas. So I learned from that. Lance won two times we got to the Garden against them, and he was definitely the difference. Right. He was just definitely different. And it's true that there's some special players, and he definitely was special for a high school kid.
Yeah. Love, you get your first championship in 2010. Tell me, what about that day? Anything in particular stand out to you?
Well, besides it being like, just something lifted off your shoulders, for me, it meant everything because I felt like I owed it to Mick. Like, I always told myself, like, there's 3 people I want to physically see me win a championship. One was, of course, my mother and my father, and Mr. Mickens. And, of course, my mother and father, they got a chance, but Mr. Mickens didn't get a chance. And, you know, in our private conversations, like when we lost to, you know, Lincoln with the Lance Stevenson, you know, come back to school, and he used to tell me, like I said, he called me kid, like a kid, don't worry about it. Like, you're going to get one of these round balls. You're going to win a championship. And, you know, at that time, you like, well, this was my chance. Like, you know, you don't get back there but so many times, you know. And he, you know, he just had that sense of just keep working hard, keep believing, you know, pieces are coming to place, and you're going to get one. So soon as that clock expired, you know, I kind of just start bawling, start crying. And I was crying, you know, most people thought maybe I was crying because I finally won a championship, but I was really crying because Mr. Mickens wasn't there physically to see
he had passed a few months before, right?
a few months before.
And I was reading one of the articles, like before the game, you said, I ain't much of a crier, but if we win that one, I might have to shed a few tears for Mick. Who was on that roster?
Oh, wow. It was
That's Mike Taylor?
yeah, it's Mike Taylor. That's Antoine Slaughter. That's Leroy Eisler. That's Jeff Neverson. Anthony Hemingway. Brandon Williams.
Did you know
Corey.
these guys were going to get it done? Was there a point in the season when you like, I got a championship team here?
Yeah, towards the end. At first, I didn't. You know, I had Leroy Truck Flood on that. That's the only player in boys high history to win 3. And he won 3 in a row. Towards the end of like regular season, you could just see. But the way those kids approach practice every day, it was war. Like,
tell them, love.
it was war. Nobody, you know, like Mike Taylor didn't want to play with Antoine, so like he wanted to play against him, and you know they be in my ear like before practice started, like, the coach, when it's time for us to scrimmage, who's on teams? Like, they just was really, really into it. All the running, they would get the running done, and they would get on each other if they didn't make the time. And it was kind of like they, you know, those 2 hours, you try to get kids to lock in for 2 hours in practice. Well, with that group, they locked in. It was nothing else mattered. They didn't care about they mom, they friend, whatever was outside that gym. Those 2 hours, they locked in, and they just became better. And they was very close, and they still close to this day.
To this day, yep.
To this day.
To this day. That game, you guys played Cardozo. I see you. You guys were down 10, able to bounce back. How were you able to keep guys together in a championship game? You down 10. You know, boys and girls came up the bridesmaid in the context before. How'd you keep them focused to pull it out?
You know, at halftime, me and my coaches, we always huddle up before we go into the locker room and, you know, pretty much say what we want to say in regards to just looking at stat sheets. And I went into the locker room. I let my assistant coaches talk and talk about what they felt that they seen out there on the court. And I remember just like sitting down, and I just got up and I just said, you know what, guys? I just want y'all to play.
That's it.
Just leave it on the court. Just play. Just have fun. Just play. Just play loose. You don't have to worry about me like yelling you for everything. Just go out there and leave it on the court.
Yeah.
And I think that's all they had to hear is like light bulb just came in their head, and they just went out there. And if you watch the first half or the second half, they just played. They just played.
Just played. How did that championship change you as a coach?
You know, I think it just solidifies. You know, I don't think it changed me much as a person, but it just solidified that, you know, a woman can get it done.
Right.
Basketball is basketball. Those guys were coming back. The majority of that team was coming back. A lot of kids want to come to the school, of course, because they seen the success that they had.
For sure.
And what people really don't know, well, I don't even know if you know this, but we ran off them 3 in a row. We probably would have ran off another 3.
Wow.
But they put a moratorium on the school.
Okay.
So that's a whole nother, issue in itself. So this moratorium that they put on the school now, Bernard Gasaway is the principal, and they were sending dumping that ground kids to the school, kids that were behind academically,
Right.
kids that was incarcerated. They were sending them boys and girls. So Mr. Gasaway, Principal Gasaway, he pretty much Department of Education. Listen, y'all sending it. These kids are not going to graduate in time.
Right.
You pretty much dumping kids in here. It's like a dumping ground. You're
Right.
making a dumping ground. So at that time, the Department of Education said, yo, you know what? You're absolutely right. But you know what? We're not going to let no kids in there.
Yikes.
So no kids could transfer into boys and girls or come into boys and girls. Shut it down. They don't do that. It's no guarantees.
Right.
But I could tell you what was coming in there. We probably ran off the next 3.
Yikes.
People don't know that. Unless you in-house.
How frustrating was that for you?
It's very frustrating because not only do you not get those kids, now you got to start all over.
Yeah.
You got to start all over. So that hurt.
Big time.
That hurt big time.
Big time. And you're robbing those kids of being under the tutelage and leadership of Ruth Lovelace. No lie.
Right.
I can attest to, I've been in that building. I've seen you save lives, help a lot of young boys transition to manhood. You mentioned you win the first championship and then you run off 3 straight. How does your preparation change? And maybe it doesn't. Preparing to, I guess, repeat as opposed to chasing the first one.
I think that
Because is it a difference? The hunter versus the hunted?
I think now people could definitely, this is different.
Yeah.
People coming at you now, they coming at you. And you know what? I think a lot of people say, well, let's see if it's a fluke.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let me see if she just got lucky and won one. Mm-hmm. Now, when you win the second one, I don't think they say it's luck. It's got to be some knowledge, some skill, some leadership. Mm-hmm. Her boys believing in what she do, working hard for them. On that second championship, I think what I changed because now Mike Taylor was coming into his own, and Leroy Truck Flood was coming in. I mean, these guys that probably can average on any team, depending on the style, they probably average 25 points a game. But I had them buy into, listen, Mike, you might only average 12 points this season. Truck, you might only average 13 points. Antoine, you might have 8. And CJ, you might only average 6. Right. But we're going to win. Because the way we defend, we believe in creating our offense off our defense. So the way we defend is we getting points off the way we defend. But you guys going to share that ball, and you guys are not going to, nobody here is going to average 20 points a game. But we're going to do a lot of winning.
Was there any resistance with that? From the guys?
I think because they won the first one.
Right. So
they pretty much bought into it. And I said to you guys, listen, and another thing too, that summer, I want to say that fall, and I ain't going to say the summer, that fall, as soon as we got back to school, we had probably 50 Division I college coaches in our gym.
Wow.
Watching them play. And so they knew, too, that all they had to do was just buy into what I'm saying, which they was, and that all of them would get scholarship offers. Yeah. And they did.
Who'd you guys play in that second championship?
The second championship, we played Lincoln.
Who was coaching over
there? Tiny.
Tiny Moore?
Yeah, Tiny Moore. Yeah, Tiny Moore.
He had been dominating the PSAL for a long time. Did that make it a little bit sweeter to defeat him? What'd he say?
I think he done. He definitely had to give me my props. Yeah. Me and Tiny, when I see him, we talk to this day. I always tell him that, I think I was the coach that humbled him a little bit. He had to congratulate me. He had a very good team. He was they were like 1 all year long. I think we were 2 going back and forth, 1 and 2. But kid Antoine Slaughter had a great game. His kid Stokes was averaging about like 28 points a game that year. And I think Antoine held him to like 11, 12 points in the guard. And so that was the difference. It's kind of like, you cut the point guard head off. Yep. I think that his teammates, the Lincoln teammates, they really couldn't pick it up from there. I mean, they just had he struggled. He struggled. And it's like knock off Lincoln, and now she didn't just knock off anybody in the championship. Yep. She knocked Lincoln in the championship.
Got to pay attention. What about that third run? Who would you
the third one was Jefferson, Thomas Jefferson. Okay. Yeah. But, Kangaroo.
Kangaroo. How'd that game go? You guys were in full swing then.
Yeah, we were actually in full swing. Great game. We shot it really well. Is
Mike Taylor and them still around?
No. That's Leroy Truck. Flood.
Okay.
Yeah. But in that game, what happened was we lost to them in a borough championship, right?
And during the season?
During the season for the boroughs, for the Brooklyn Borough Championship. Yeah. We lost to them about 2 points. Well, my sixth man, Rashid, at that time, Anderson, he was scoreless in that game. Mm-hmm. And, I let him have it. I let him have it. I rolled him on that. You were scoreless at the Borough Championship all through practice leading up to our playoffs. And he must have, that kind of just stuck with him. Mm-hmm. And he was on fire in the guard.
So the love ain't going to get on me again.
He was on. It was like, you know what? I got my chance to redeem myself championship against. But it's all it's all the marbles. Everything counts, and it happens to be against them again.
That last run, you guys won the state championship also, right? Mm-hmm. So much emphasis is put on the city championship, of course, bragging rights, Brooklyn, Queens, but the state is a big deal, love. How significant was that for you in the program?
Oh, it was very big. Because if you look at, I guess if you was to look at the numbers for state championship, a lot of times public schools don't win those. You know? They just don't. And so for us to actually win it, it's funny when you kind of asking me this because I remember like hearing it, I'm going in the Mick office in 79 when Mick and them won it, right? They had a chance to go to the States. Right. But when they would send him to the States was in Syracuse. Mm-hmm. And they wanted him to take like a bus, like pretty much like a school bus up to Syracuse.
That's a long ride.
That's a long Mick. Mick was like, he just went to the newspapers. Before you know it, somebody with some money donated. They flew out, played, but Mick just said they just couldn't get it done, But that was the first time that they went to the States, because way back they didn't have the States, like back in the 60s. But they created in the 70s, so he was the first one to go to the States. So that's like 79. Mm-hmm. Now we don't win it again in 2010, so now it's our turn to go to the States. It's the only state title in New York and Boys and Girls High School.
That's a big deal.
It's a big deal.
For those who don't know, it's the public schools. They go play against the best schools in the state, which is sometimes the private schools. How does the basketball differ up there in that environment? Playing against the private schools you don't play throughout the year. Right.
And you're playing against a lot of schools that don't have the same governing rules that you have. Mm-hmm. Like, so a lot of times it's older kids. Our academic standards and rules and regulations in order to be eligible is a little different. In Catholic school, they might just put you, on probation, but it's up to, the school to let you play. Right. And then, you got, quote unquote, those people that just think Catholic school, private school is better, and they send their kids there. Mm-hmm. So I remember we beat Mount Vernon, and Mount Vernon was really the team picked to win it. Right. To this day, every time I see the Mount Vernon coach, he was like, "You guys was unbelievable in that game. It was unbelievable." We kind of went on like a 24-4 run, and the first half, I mean, they were up. They were up like maybe 8 or 9 after the first quarter. Then we go on this 24-4 run and kind of just never look back. And he had some really great plays. He had at that time he had about 4 or 5 kids. It was major Division I.
Nice. Got it done at the state level. Love, you mentioned you got on Anderson and he bounced back. How would you describe your leadership style? You hear terms, players coach, disciplinarian. Like, in your own words, who is Ruth Lovelace, the basketball coach, and what's her leadership style?
I really think my leadership style is that I just really try to lead by example, right? And I kind of always was a type of person that wanted to do things right, and wanted to do well. And I was raised that you do well by putting in the hard work and trying to do things right. So that's kind of like the morals and values I kind of live by. I'm not a yeller, screamer, but I can yell and I can scream. Yeah, if it calls for it, I'm gonna get all over you. But I'm also gonna make you see why you need to do certain things. Like you said, our kids come from
the bottom.
The bottom. Where it's not too much going on. Like it's funny. I'm driving to work today and I'm coming down Fulton Street. And like Schenectady and Fulton is cut off. It was a shooting in the middle of the night. You know what I mean? So I had to circle around and come around. So I'm just saying that, and that goes on a lot. And it's nothing to do with boys and girls, but I'm just saying this is where
it's our community.
This is our community.
This is the stuff we have to deal with.
Exactly, and they so used to it. So just trying to let them know too, that little round ball. If you just believe in it, it could get you out of the city. Right? It could do so much for you. It could change your life, but you gotta pretty much believe in it.
And the outside community affects our players a great deal. I was going through some of your more documented cases as a coach, and I was surprised to see this one because this young man, that was my dude in school. One of your players went home and found his mom had hanged herself. This is part of the job too. Love, what do you remember when you first learned of that?
To be honest, I think I cried. 1 or 2 tears came down my eyes.
Did he tell you personally, or some?
His aunt told me. His aunt called me and told me, and I remember it being late night, and I just kind of went down to our house, and he was there, and I just told him that that no matter what, he gonna have me for life. Anything that he ever need, conversation, and come up to the high, whatever he need, and it's funny. He was gonna go somewhere else, coming into high school,
right?
And I was recruiting him, and I got a chance to meet his mother, get his mother up to the school. Very nice lady. Show her around, tell her, this is what we do. A little bit of background on the school, administration, resources. So I kind of got to really conversate and know her a little bit because we would talk if it was open school night, whatever. I would conversate with her and. To find out how, that was her cause of death. I just couldn't believe it. But as time go on, just talking to his aunts, she was the backbone of the family, her sisters and brothers. Right. And so she held a lot down. And you just don't know that people are suffering from mental illness as well, and the stress that goes along with it. And they kind of seen the signs and got her some help. And then she was released, from the institution. And just, when she got a chance of being in the house by herself, that's what she did. And they came and then they found her. But
Love, what prepares you to handle this stuff? Like, this ain't in the job description per se, but it is part of the job. Like, again, my young coaches are watching this. Like, who do you turn to help you handle this situation, or you just go with your heart? Like, what advice would you give to these young coaches out there that are going to be faced with these type of situations, and these young athletes are relying on them?
It takes a team and it takes a family, and that's how I like to look at boys and girls as it being a family oriented. And I remember having a conversation with Mick and talking to Mick about it because Mick liked him as well. He was loved him, just loved how hard he played and how hard he worked. And I said to Mick, Mick, listen, I want him to come to school and I want him to be around me all day. I don't want him to go to class. Let's give me a week where he just be with me in my class, and I'll make sure I get the work from his teachers, and we'll get it done in the afternoon. But he just go with me wherever I go for a week.
Wow.
And I talked to his aunt, and I said, listen, the only thing I ask that you get to school, make sure he get to school every day.
Right.
And that's what he did for about 2 weeks, until he kind of came around a little bit. He was with me every minute of the day in school.
Wow.
And, I know she looks down, and she's very proud of him, married, kids, religious background, just, working, just turned out to be a great young man.
Wow, man. You just came up with that on the fly. Just let him hang around me for 2 weeks, because that's what you thought will help get him back to where he needs to be, man. That's crazy. There was another case I was reading about where there was a young man dealing with kind of food insecurity. At the end of the week, you would fill up a duffel bag of food for them, and
I would, just didn't have no food in the house, and so what I would do is on Fridays I would make sure I put milk, juice, bread, some cold cuts, cereal. And I would make sure every Friday I give it to him and take it home so he can make sure he eat over the weekend and throughout the week. And I just did that for the whole year.
When these young men are going through these issues, and this is kind of a battle I have as a coach, they're dealing with struggle, they're dealing with pain, they're going home to violent communities and different things. But we still got to play basketball. We still got a standard to meet. How do you juggle the compassion versus still getting the job done?
I think that sometimes kids, all they need is a little bit of help, right? Because they love that basketball. They love that round ball. They're going to do whatever it takes to play that basketball. So if they need a little support, whether financially, maybe some clothes on their back, some food, whatever they need, why not? Let's provide that, right? Because I'm asking you to work as hard as you can for me, not only for me, but for yourself, for your family, for your school. Right. So if you need me to meet you halfway with some other resources, then that's my job. Because it's not all about basketball.
How do you make sure you don't get burned out? Or how do you keep from burning out, love?
Because I think at the end of the day, my legacy it's been built on seeing what young men have turned out to be, right? Like you said to me, love, I was 13 years old. So from 13 years old to adulthood, and when you see the success, PhD, great job, city, state, taking care of your family. Because to be honest, success for me is being able to take care of yourself and your family.
Absolutely.
That's how I measure success. So when I see that and you say, hey, coach, come to my wedding, or, coach, come to my housewarming, that's the rewarding part. That's not Lovelace won these 3 championships, state title, 27 years straight playoff performances. Nah, it's the kid that becomes that man, and to see that success, that's the rewarding part. That's what keep me going. Because you know what? Right now, there's a 13-year-old William Holly at Boys and Girls.
Yep, that needs you.
That need me.
You had one of your players lived with you for a year, right?
Yes.
How did that come about?
Kid was attending Boys and Girls. His mother decided to move back to Africa. He loved Boys and Girls.
Oh, yeah.
And the administration, the teachers, he's a very good student. He was a role model student. And he came to me and he was crying, came to my office, he was crying. He was like, love, my mother's about to move back to Africa, but I don't want to go. Please, is there anything you could do? Because I don't want to go. Yeah. I'm like, I don't know if there's anything I could do per se, because the department rules and regulations.
For sure.
This is now when Mick come in, like that plays back in your head. Don't worry, I got your back.
I got you.
So he says to me, like, I tell Mick, this is the story, kid, mother. He's like, what? He great, like I said, 90 average kid, role model kid. He said, so kid, what you want to do? I said, to be honest, I got a room in my house, but I don't know if, I could do that. He was like, don't worry about it. He's going to live with you, and don't worry about what nobody, I got your back, nobody say, nobody, he's going to, and graduated, went top kids, Boys and Girls, scholarship, played at Bowery College, one of the top academic schools in the country, Division II. Still lives out in that area, CEO of a company.
Dope.
Very successful.
Dope. What was that conversation like with his mom? She was with it, I guess.
Yeah, she definitely was with it. Like they came over, because they came over from Africa. Right. So, things were a little difficult in Africa. And she just seen like he would come to school and he didn't come home until like 9 o'clock at night just to eat, to get up and go do it again. And she just seen the success on how he was doing. And, and academically, she didn't really see that many of his games, but his stepdad did. Right. And, when her son comes home and cries and say like, Ma, you go ahead, I really want to stay here. And she was like, that's what it is. I want the best for my son. And this is what my son want.
That's what we're going to do.
This is what we're going to do.
A few things off the court. Is it true you mentioned Lawrence Bud Pollard get the head coaching position at Thomas Jefferson High School here in Brooklyn?
Yes, that is definitely true.
Love, that's the competition.
Yeah, that's the competition. But you know what? Again, that family, when we talk about Boys and Girls being our family, Bud Lawrence Pollard is a graduate of Boys and Girls High School. So at that time, Bud would come to all the Boys and Girls games because he was a middle school teacher. And, he had some players that he definitely was filtering to the school. Like, if that's one thing I could say about Bud. Some middle school kids, he was pushing them to Boys and Girls. Okay. And so when the Jefferson job came open, one of my people called me from Jefferson and said, listen, the job is open. We need a coach. Pretty much whoever you tell me to hire, I'm going to hire. So, I seen Bud at the game. I said, yeah, Bud, listen, Jefferson job is open. Do you want to, what do you think about coaching? And Bud was really like, I don't know, because he had a great position at the middle school. Right. He really didn't know if he wanted to leave that. So, I said, well, but listen, if you're not willing to actually, go teach at the high school, then I'm really not going to advise a person to even hire you. Right. So he said, okay, let me think about it. He went home, I guess, called me the next day and said, I want to go on that interview. I said, but listen, again, you're not going to be successful unless you got to be in the school with high school kids. They're like, oh, man, I got it great. My people, my principal, they take care of me at the middle school. I don't know. I said, again, but I'm not even gonna get you the interview. So then we talked about it, and he said, you know what, Ru, I'm gonna make that move. And
They've been doing a great job. What do you think when you see how that program has blossomed under his leadership?
you know, I'm very happy for him. You know, again, kangaroo for life.
For
You
sure.
know, I made up that statement. At the end of each kid's senior year, I give him a plaque or whatever. I give him a jacket, but I give him a plaque, and it ends with kangaroo for life.
Right.
You know, and so Bud is a kangaroo for life. I know that he's at Jeff, and that's what he do, but I know there's something in him that want the Kangaroos to be successful as well. So the one thing I could say is that Jefferson basketball is better with him than before him.
For sure.
And, so.
Love, I got to add that to your legacy. Helping to put a capable coach in position at a school that's your competition just helps to uplift the whole state of basketball in the city overall. So I definitely got to put that up there with the 3 championships, the state championships. Like, you just looking out for the city. And those lives that Bud is able to touch, like, you help put a prominent person in position, man. That is phenomenal. Love, I look around, Steph Curry got the world on fire. He's Under Armour athlete. I grew up in an era where Under Armour was just a dry fit t-shirt, right? And then they start going into football. But the first time I ever seen Under Armour basketball gear was at Boys and Girls High School.
Yeah, you're right.
Like, yo, that's crazy. When you think about it, the first time ever, we saw this global brand, the first time ever was at Boys and Girls. How'd that come about?
It came about, Under Armour just contacted me and just told me that they was trying to move and push their basketball gear. Where I come from, my first couple of years, maybe my first 2 years of giving each member on that team a box of candy, saying, go sell up candy. You know the candy, the almonds, the Dynasty. So there's a box of, 30 candies in there. You got to sell it. And listen, candy money is due on Friday. Every Friday, bring your candy. Kids come back. They come back $4 short. But that was just how we had to fundraise to get them a pair of sneakers, right? Sure. I remember, like, fundraise, they was back then, the Converse weapons was like Larry Bird and Magic Johnson. Okay. It was the big shoe, and the first team, that's what they wore. They wore the Converse weapons, but that was because we had to fundraise selling candy. So now that's part of your hard work too. Now you're successful. People know Boys and Girls Basketball. Now, here comes Under Armour, right? And they say...
What year was this?
This was, this had to be like 2010 maybe? Okay. Maybe 9, 10. So they come in and they fly in and they like, we just want to sit at the table with you and just have a conversation with you. We're trying to push our brand. And when they came in, what they said that they could do, like the package, it wasn't about me. It was about the program. So what they was offering, where like every kid would get maybe 3, 4, 5 pair of shoes a year, home away uniforms, all the Under Armour winter gear, tights, the hats. Like, it was really a no-brainer, right? So now I pretty much agree, sign with them, the school signs with them. And then, so we're the only school now. Yep. Everybody sees like, yo, this is Boys and Girls with this Under Armour. Yep. Now everybody wants it, and around the city. And so the next year now, tiny signs, Lincoln, right? You calling me like, your rule. Loxon, they signed Lincoln, and then the third year, they signed Jefferson. Like, what you think? Like, it was the next team. Like, me and Tiny was like, Jefferson, they up and coming.
That's dope.
So he signs them.
That's dope, love. So that's a big deal for these schools. You said we out here selling candy. Some of us still selling candy. Right. So for them to be able to swoop in and provide gear to the school is dope. Yo, love, you put on the city in ways that people don't even know, man.
They really don't. People don't really know that too. You know, we're the only public school sponsored by Nike in the city.
To this day, now?
Right now, to this day.
Wow, how long you guys been with Nike?
So we've been with Nike since like 2012.
Repping now, huh?
2013.
How's that partnership?
It's been great. You know, it's been great. And it's funny what you lose sleep from in basketball. Like I said, I was fundraising, selling candy to get some weapons, and now you got Under Armour, you got Nike, and you like they both at the table with you, and you got to make a decision, and it's like one of the toughest decisions you got to make. But you think about basketball, you say Nike is basketball,
Indeed.
right? Nike is basketball, so I decided to go with Nike, and they've been very good partnership. They take care of the kids, because it's really about the kids, you know. And anything else I could do for other kids, like even help me out with like the girls team, and that means a lot to me because I just feel like girls are treated unfairly. So to be able to give the girls program some Nike gear, it's worth it.
That's worth it. 2009, you were the subject of an ESPN documentary, A Woman Among Boys. To have a camera with you all year could kind of be invasive. Like, how resistant were you to that at first? Because when I think about it, my team, my practices, my locker room, like, love, what'd you think when you first were approached by that?
I was I was like, wow, man, this is really gonna be like a fly on the wall everywhere I go. Do I really want this?
Right.
But then reality sets in. Like, Ruth, this ain't about you, right? This is about boys and girls, high school. This is about the program. So if it meant that fly on the wall on my shoulder, on my back, on my leg, then that's what it's gonna be. And
were they there every day in practice?
just about every day.
Wow.
Just about every day they was there for a long period of time. Another thing that people don't know is that during the documentary they gave some money to the school. The principals asked me at that time, what do you want to do? And that year, I gave every athlete in Boys and Girls High School $100.
Every athlete, not just basketball.
Every athlete. And that's when Boys and Girls had 26 teams at that time.
Wow.
So that's it.
What'd you think of the final product?
I thought it was good. It's always some stuff you was like, they should have put that in or they should have took that out. But they have a job to do. It was a win. It was a win situation. For all the people that got the opportunity to see it, I still show it to this day because boys and girls, the demographics of boys and girls have changed. So the kids there, like you went there, is 4,000 kids. It's no longer 4,000 kids. Right. So when I show it and those kids see it, they like, wow. It's really important to know the history.
Big time.
So kids like, that was just like 10 years ago? Yep. Yeah, just 10 years ago. This is what it looked like. So, for those kids, they have that for life, Everywhere I go, people, they know that documentary. I remember, it's funny, I'm in Detroit and I'm actually, eating in a restaurant and it's a guy and his girlfriend, they kind of like away, like maybe 2 tables away from me, and you start seeing them talking, and then the conversation get a little louder, and he's like, yo, I'm telling you, that's her. He's like, no, that ain't her. Yeah. And you could just, I can hear. And then, he's like, what, I'm going to ask her. So he gets up and come over. He said, no disrespect, but I just need to ask you a question. Are you the lady coach on a documentary? So I played it off. I was just playing. I was like, nah. So she was like, I told you that was a. I told you. He got halfway. I said, yeah, that's me. Then he's like, I tell you. So it's just funny. So it's just that wherever you go, I'm like, I'm in Detroit. How? I
Yeah.
mean, people recognize that in Detroit. Like, just everywhere I go, people recognize me. So, you know what? That tells you that you did something right.
Big time.
Did something
Big
right.
time, man. All the way in Detroit, like your impact, like can never even measure it. It's not just here in the city. On that documentary, you had an assistant, Coach Elmer Anderson, right? Coach Anderson, he came around when I was in school. He was a former Kangaroo. How long was he with you?
Coach Anderson was with me for about 7 years.
7 years. You guys had tremendous success. Well, what was that partnership like? How did he contribute to the program?
Again, he was a Kangaroo, former Kangaroo, and to me that's very important. But you know what? He was a guy. His day title was he's like a parent coordinator. So he pretty much stayed a lot in his office. So he was really, really good with like doing all the phone calls, setting things up. Cause now I teach. I'm teaching them in classroom. I'm a dean. I'm always in the hallway. So it worked really well because he was the guy that was kind of like in the office, taking care of a lot of the business stuff, where I was pretty much moving around. So certain things I would tell him that I needed done. He could wait on a phone call. If he would call you 20 minutes later, I couldn't do that because I didn't have 20 minutes. So, in that aspect, he from the business aspect, and then he had young men that he really liked him, and he tried to give back as that uncle, big father figure. He played major college basketball as well. He played a little bit overseas professional. So.
He played at the High with Pearl Washington.
Yeah, he played at the High with Pearl Washington. Legendary shooter at, Boys and Girls. After his college career, he played professionally overseas. Had a tryout, NBA. So yeah, kids, they somewhat want to hear those stories and see that as well too. So it was good.
Now, Love, he's been somewhat conspicuous by his absence. What can you tell us about? The fact that he's not around anymore.
Well, you know what? Sometimes, that marriage, that we had, it just was a breakup. It was just the way he was doing things. It was no longer like, let me make sure I put this correct. Like the way he was moving wasn't who I was. And I didn't agree to certain things that he was doing, and I didn't stand for certain things that he was doing. I think too, I started to open my circle a little bit. Like a lot of times, it was just like me and him. So when I started to open my circle a little bit, I think that exposed him a little bit. He wasn't comfortable with that, and sometimes you could paint a picture of making it seem like you the one that's doing everything, but now when other people come in and they start to see like, whoa, hello, that picture you painting
Inaccurate.
is inaccurate.
Okay. And ultimately, it's your name on the door, your credibility on the line. So, I understand you have to go and, like you said, the marriage just broke up. Love, 28 years. How has the state of high school basketball changed? Because, Love, I'm seeing all this AAU, like, they ain't no off season. These kids is walking into high school expecting a starting spot. Like, I don't know. You tell me, it seemed a lot different.
Oh, it's changed a lot. It's changed a lot. What I hate about it, and I'm not gonna say all AAU programs because there are very few really good AAU teams that's doing it the right way.
Right.
But I could go on record and say most of them are not. Are not. And I would say most people in this game will say the same thing. And because they're not doing things the right way, they're ruining kids.
Yeah.
I never seen so many middlemen. When I say middlemen, it's people who are handling kids, right? And they handling kids for their own success.
Right.
And as a high school coach, coming up the ranks, everything you do is you do for those kids, those successful. You don't do it to be rewarded back, right? The reward is if the kid is successful and he goes on and he makes something. Like I said, that's what I want my legacy to be remembered. But if you're looking to benefit off a kid, I got a problem with that. If you're fighting in the stands, other parents arguing and standing fighting, I got a problem with that. If you're walking on the court and you're stopping games and you're fighting referees, I got a problem. That's not basketball.
No way.
That's not basketball, and you're sending the wrong message. And also, is that what I noticed too? You do anything to win.
They do, love. They do.
Anytime you got kids playing not in their age bracket, you know they older. Yeah. What message is you sending to those kids? What message are you sending to the kids that are the right age? Mm-hmm. And I got a problem with that. And that creates a whole problem in this game of basketball. I just don't think it's enough teaching going on.
Not at all.
I think everybody's looking for the finished product. And when a finished product is good, then somebody's trying to take that finished product. And, we got to do better. That's it. We got to do better.
And what's most scary is that I feel like those that are in it for the right reasons, a select few, they now feel the pressure to kind of do nefarious things. That's why I really wanted to highlight you today, love, because I know firsthand the lives you have saved. I've known the things you've done behind scenes to help put kids in the right position, man. So I wanted to make sure the city knew exactly who's leading the way out there. Let's see what else I got for you. The Kangaroo Classic, love. We gonna get one this year?
You know what? I talked to some of my closest people that, when I say that, like the athletic director, the principal, some of my former players, and I would have to say, based on the COVID regulations that the PSAL put out, it wouldn't be a good choice to give the Kangaroo Classic or the Frank Mickens Classic, because there always been fundraising events. Right. And one of the rules right now that is no spectators. So you can't even come in and watch it, It's going to seem weird, every Thanksgiving, right? We always play Kangaroo Classic the Saturday after Thanksgiving. But every Thanksgiving for my last 27 years, I've been at Boys and Girls practicing.
For sure.
Just getting in touch with the alumni. Everybody's home. Everybody's getting their tickets. Just the energy of the Kangaroo Classic. I really don't know what I'm going to do. I really don't know what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to traditionally still hold practice, because that's something that we did. But to actually have the game, we're going to wait one more year on it. And I really want to do something big because my good friend who played at Boys and Girls High School is the All-City when I was there, a guy named Mo Kirby. Okay. Right? Passed away last year, so I wanted to kind of came with the Mo Kirby Day. But we're going to have to wait one more year because Mo Kirby just gave back to the community, free tournaments. Just did it because he had a passion for kids and a passion to giving back to the community. And he gives it at 335 right there on St. Mark's in Rochester. And that's very important for me because that's where, we pretty much come from. And, it's walking distance from the high. And so we're going to have to, take a hold on that. But we'll be back next year. For sure. We'll be back next year. For sure.
Love, I know you say you want to do this as long as you can. Do you think about retirement at all?
You know what? To be honest, you do think about it. But then you say to yourself, let it get there. Get to that point. Don't rush time. When the time comes, then I'll make the decision. There's a lot of people that are like, I know you're not going away. I know you're not going to retire. But there's a part of me, too, that have been very blessed to have this longevity. And in my heart, I feel that the torch got to be passed as well.
Yeah.
And I think it's got to be passed to someone young, somebody that's younger than me, and so they could make their mark. So why do I hold on to this position when I can retire and let somebody else take it? If I want to volunteer, I volunteer.
Sure.
So to be honest, I am looking, when I think about it, it's more like, when your time comes, step aside and let the next trailblazer. Because you know what? I got it at 22 years old.
For sure. For sure. Love, before we get out of here, I don't want to put you on the spot. Well, maybe I do. 28 years. You know, Boys and Girls High School has a rich tradition. Guys that are in the Hall of Fame, like Connie Hawkins, Lenny Wilkins. We mentioned Pearl Washington, rest in peace. But your 28 years, if you had to assemble a team of 5 guys, help you win a game over your last 28 years, what's that roster look like?
I think that's the toughest question of the night.
Guys, nobody get offended. It's all love, all kangaroos.
And the reason why I say that is because I learned that every player has their era, you know.
True.
So when you think about Connie Hawkins, that was a great era, but there's been eras.
Right.
So, you know, it's just like the same argument. Is Michael Jordan better than LeBron? Jordan played in his era. LeBron has an era. Curry has an era. So I think it's unfair. But if you're going to put me on a spot, and I can't say, because I don't know a lot of the players before me. I know the you know.
No, just your guys. Your 28
just my
years.
guys. Just my 28 years. Ooh, you get me in trouble. I'm getting some phone calls tonight.
I got Greedy at the 4.
Oh. But to be honest, I think my best all-around player, all-around that did everything, would have to be Nolan Johnson.
Okay. What position he playing? I'm unfamiliar. What year is?
Ooh, Nolan is like 90. Nolan's probably 96, 6'3", played at Oklahoma.
What position you got him at?
Left hand. Ooh. I have to put him at, man. Can I list 2? Oh, man, maybe. Dang, that's tough. Because you can't say 2 guard. You still got so many 2 guards. You have to put Leroy Truck Fred in there.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Okay.
he won 3. Only one to get it done.
So we got Nolan, we got Truck.
Point guard, you know. I had so many point guards. If you talk about pure point guard, I think the best pure point guard our coach probably was Nunu.
Eugene Harvey.
Didn't say Eugene Harvey, even though he didn't stay there. But then, you know, the Slaughter was great. Antoine Slaughter, Leroy Robinson was great at that position too. Wow.
We got Truck, we got Nolan, we got Nunu.
We listen to about positions.
Nah, I'm just got names up there.
Let me think. Oh, I coach so many kids.
We got Tommy Guns, we got Amadou Fall, we got Greedy.
Yeah, you got those are all great.
You got a dude out there that's tearing up the pro set right now. What's it, Lightfoot?
Lightfoot, the kid that's probably some people say might be the best card there since Pearl Washington. This kid I had last year, Khalil Brantley.
Okay.
So you got Tommy Eddy.
Yep.
Easily
Guns.
could have been player of the year, his senior year. They gave it to Kenny Adeleke for Roberson, but when you talk to Kenny said like, that should have went to Tommy. Yeah. So, we could go down the line. A lot of great players. It's hard to put in the group as 5.
All right, we made it sweat a little bit. We ain't gonna put on the spot. Love, you the greatest, man. And lastly, I see this quote I had from Mick. Another quote from Mick, the legendary Dr. Frank Mickens. And he said, quote, "The more I thought, look, this is our soul. This is our kid. This is who we raised in this school and in this community. this is going to be someone who's going to have this job for a long time. This is what he said when he was referring to you. And once again, the Maverick, the legend, like he had the foresight.
He had the foresight. Just beyond himself. Like, how did he know that?
How did he know that? Love, he knew that school needed more than a basketball coach. They needed a leader. That community needed a leader. You know, when I was about to do this podcast, I was like, I'm going to do a podcast with Love. When I was first trying to get in contact with you, people were like, yo, you got a number? I said, no, I don't need a number. I know where she at. You know what I'm saying? Love is a pillar. We need her, and she's always been there for us. Like, do you feel like you fulfilled his vision?
I hope so. Yes, and you know, every day I think about that guy.
Mm-hmm.
Every day that I think about that guy, and I try to do the things that I think about, like, what would Mick think?
Mm-hmm.
What would Mick do? And I try to live by that, and never letting them down. You know, there's no such thing as you tired. No such thing as, you can't do it, because he did it. He got up there at 4 o'clock in the morning every day. He's at Boys and Girls. All right, to 10 o'clock at night. And like you said, he never hiding in no office. Mm-hmm. He just was in the forefront, just making sure things go the right way. And I try to...
You did it, Love. Love, you did it.
I appreciate it.
And we can't even measure that in trophy. Like, the impact on the ground level, the lives you just saved, like, it's amazing, man. I just want to say thank you on behalf of the fellas.
And I want to say thank you for having me, and thank you for you guys believing me, and just putting that red and black across your chest, and it was bigger than that, you know. Can't leave my boy Lee Church out.
Church,
you know. These guys that, they go to war.
Yeah.
Go to war for that red and black.
All right, man. That's WBH Radio. I'm William Holly. We out.